Hi everyone, today we are going to learn the conditionals. We also call it if clauses. It's a part of the adverbial clause of conditions. Conditional sentences are used to speculate about what could happen, what might have happened, and what we wish would happen. In English, most of the sentences using the conditional contain the word if. Conditionals also express a possible condition, a hypothetical condition, and an unreal past condition and their probable results. There are 5 main ways of constructing conditional sentences in English. In all cases, these sentences are made up of an if clause and a main clause. In many negative conditional sentences, there is an equivalent sentence construction using unless instead of if. There are 5 types of conditionals in English. Zero type, which talks about general truths, real and possible situations. Type-1, it's an open condition, which talks about probable or possible condition in the present. Type-2, a hypothetical condition or an imaginary condition or an improbable condition. Type-3, an impossible condition or an unreal past condition or an unfulfilled condition. Finally, the mixed type, an unreal past condition and its probable result in the present and in the past. Spotlight. Whenever you see an if clause at the beginning of the sentence, you must put a comma after it. But if you see or if you use a main clause first, you do not need a comma. Now let us learn the construction of zero type condition and its uses. Zero type conditionals. Let us see the form of it. In zero conditionals, the tense in both parts of the sentence is the simple present. There are 2 parts in zero conditional sentence: the if or when or unless clause and the main clause. The if or when or unless clause is the conditional and the main clause is the result of the if clause. Let us learn the structure of zero conditionals. Structure or the tense we call it. Subordinate clause or we also call it if clause. Let us see the form of it and the main clause of it. We can use if, when or unless to express zero condition. The subordinate clause or if clause formula is subject plus first form of the verb, we also call it V1 form, plus object, we also call it the simple present form. Main clause, the result, subject plus first form of the verb, we also call it V1 form plus object, the simple present. Sometimes we also can use imperative sentences in zero conditions. Let us learn some examples. If you heat ice, it melts. Ice melts if you heat it. In the first example, if clause has started at the beginning of the sentence, so I added a comma after it. In the second example, main clause has started in the beginning, so I don't need to add a comma after it. Let us learn the function of the zero conditional. It is used to make statements about the real world, a routine, a habit, often refers to general truths or scientific facts. It also gives instructions or strong advice. In these sentences, the time is now or always, and the situation is real and possible. Let us learn some examples of it. If you freeze water, it becomes a solid piece. Example 2. Plants die if they don't get enough water. Example 3. If the public transport is efficient, people stop using their cars. Example 4. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. Example 5. If you don't water plants, they die. The zero conditional is also often used to give instructions using the imperatives in the main clause. Let us learn the structure and some examples of it. the subordinate clause, and the main clause as we have learned in the previous. Let us learn some examples of it. If Rakesh phones, tell him to meet me at the Inox. Example 2. Ask Praveen if you are not sure what to do. Example 3. If you want to come, call me before 5 p.m. Example 4. If it's cold outside, wear a jacket. Example 5. If I am late for dinner, they start eating without me. Unless means the same as if not. It also used in zero conditionals. Let us see the format and some examples with unless. The format is same as we have learned earlier. Let us learn some examples of it. Example 1. Unless he asks you politely, refuse to do any more work on the project. Example 2. Unless you mix red paint in yellow paint, you don't get orange paint. Example 3. We go to work tomorrow unless something unexpected happens. Example 4. The garden party is on unless it rains. When is also used instead of if in only zero conditions. Let us learn the formula and some examples of it by using when. The formula is same as we have learned earlier. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. When you heat ice, it melts. Ice melts when you heat it. Example 2. When people eat too much, they get fat. Example 3. When you travel to Andhra Pradesh, go to RK Beach. Example 4. When I don't clean my room, my mom gets angry. Let us learn now Type 1 conditional and its sentence constructions and its function or uses. Type 1 conditional. Let us learn the form and the sentence structure and the functions of Type 1 conditional. In a Type 1 conditional sentence, the tense in the if clause is in the simple present, and the tense in the main clause is in the simple future. Type 1 conditional refers to a possible condition and its probable result. Conditional Type 1 talks about real situations and facts that are really likely to happen. These sentences are based on facts and they are used to make statements about the real world and about the particular situations. We often use such sentences to give warnings. In Type 1 conditional sentences, the time is the present or future and the situation is real. Let us learn the structure of Type 1 conditional. It has two clauses, if clause and the main clause. The if clause can have all the present tenses in English grammar like present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. Main clause. The main clause have the future simple tense or have the modal verbs like can, may, might, must, should, and could, etc. Let's learn some formulas of Type 1 conditional. Simple present plus simple future tense. Simple present plus modal verbs. Simple present plus be going to. Simple present plus imperative sentences. It also used with present continuous tense plus simple future. Present perfect plus modal verbs. Present perfect plus simple future. It also used with some adjectives, if plus some adjectives. Simple present plus some imperatives. Let us learn some examples by using simple present plus simple future formula. Question 1. I see him, I shall give him his gift. If I see him, I shall give him his gift. Question 2. Hurry up, you can catch the last bus. If you hurry up, you can catch the last bus. Question 3. Do it now, or I won't let you play. If you do it now, I will let you play. We also can express this in another way. If you don't do it now, I won't let you play. Let us learn some examples by using the formula simple present plus modal verbs. Some examples. Example 1. If you behave yourself, you can come to the party. Example 2. If the weather improves, we shall go for a walk. If the weather improves, we can go for a walk. If the weather improves, we may go for a walk. Example 3. If you promise to be careful, you can drive my car. Example 4. If you come, you can see him. Example 5. If I arrive early, I might take a stroll around the park. Example 6. If I have time, I might make a cake. Let us learn some examples by using the formula simple present plus be going to. Example 1. If you don't study hard, you are going to fail. Example 2. If you don't leave now, I'm going to miss the flight. Example 3. If you don't come today, you're not going to see him again. Example 4. If she is not ill, she is going to come tomorrow. Let us learn some examples by using the formula simple present plus some imperatives. We use the imperatives to give instructions or advice. Example 1. If you need anything, just ask me. Example 2. If you see Arun, tell him he needs to come to my office. Example 3. If you go to Australia, send me a postcard. Example 4. If you travel abroad, remember your passport. Example 5. If you have a few hours to spare, you may visit the museum. Example 6. If you don't feel well, you should consult a doctor. Let us learn some examples with the structure present continuous plus simple future. Example 1. If we are leaving soon, I shall get my coat. Example 2. If you are exercising every day, you will lose your weight and get fit. Example 3. If it is snowing, we shall stay at home. Example 4. If the kids are enjoying themselves, we shall let them go on playing. Let us learn some examples by using the formula present perfect plus modal verbs. The present perfect in the if clause of a sentence in the first conditional emphasizes that one action depends upon the completion of other. The if by then of the first clause establishes the future context. So any present tense verb form will work to express a future condition. Let us learn some examples by using present perfect and the modal verb. Example 1. If I have seen the movie by then, I'll tell you about it. Example 2. If it hasn't rained by then, we have to irrigate the crops. Example 3. If I have finished writing my paper by tonight, I'll go out with my friends. Let us learn some examples by using the formula present perfect plus simple future. Example 1. If I have had my coffee, I'll think better. Example 2. If the road has been built by then, we will drive on it. Example 3. If he has finished his work, he will be able to come with you. Many words and expressions can be used with a similar meaning to if. Some common examples: unless, suppose, supposing, what if, providing, provided that, as long as, so long as, on condition that, only if, should you with inversion, whether or not, even if, in case, in the event of, or and otherwise. We are going to learn these all with their meanings and with some examples. Conditional clauses can begin with unless. Unless means something similar to if not or except if. The verb forms in the examples are similar to sentences with if. We use the present simple in the unless clause and shall, should, will, would, can, could, may, or might in the main clause. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. Unless I phone you, you cannot assume the train is on time. The meaning is, if I don't phone you, or except if I phone you, you can assume the train is on time. Example 2. We'll have to cancel the show unless we sell more tickets at the last minute. The meaning is, we'll have to cancel the show if we do not sell more tickets, except if we sell more tickets at the last minute. Example 3. Unless he is physically fit, he won't be recruited. Example 4. I won't go on a holiday unless I save some money. Let us learn the definition of suppose, supposing, what if with some examples. We normally use suppose or supposing at the beginning of a sentence to make someone imagine a situation. It means what would happen if, or simply if imagining a situation. Suppose or supposing and what if can replace if, mainly in everyday conversation, and are often used without a main clause. Example 1. Supposing I got a job, I wouldn't be able to travel with you next summer. Example 2. Suppose she doesn't believe you. What would you do then? Example 3. Supposing you win the lottery, what will you do? Example 4. Supposing you cannot find a job, what will you do? Example 5. Supposing I don't arrive till after midnight, will the guest house still be open? Means imagine if I don't arrive till after midnight. Example 6. What if you are not accepted to university? What will you do then? Let us learn some examples and the definition of provided, provided that, providing that. We can use the expression provided, providing that instead of if when we want to emphasize the condition that needs to be present that something can happen or be done. Providing that is more common in speaking. Provided that is more formal and more common in written language. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. I'll lend you money provided that you pay me back next month. Example 2. You can get a senior citizens reduction providing you have got a railway card. Example 3. They may do whatever they like provided that it's within the law. Example 4. Providing that the bills are paid, tenants will not be evicted. Let us learn as long as, so long as with its definition and some examples. We can use the expressions as long as instead of if when we want to emphasize the condition that needs to be present so that something can happen or be done. Example 1. I'll tell you what really happened as long as you keep the secret. Example 2. You can stay here as long as you keep quiet. Example 3. You can play in the living room as long as you don't make a mess. Example 4. So long as a tiger stands still, it is invisible in the jungle. Example 5. You can borrow the car so long as you don't drive too fast. Let us learn on condition that, only if, their definition with some examples. We can use the expressions on condition that or only if instead of if when we want to emphasize the condition that needs to be present so that something can happen or be done. Only if makes the condition more restrictive. If the if clause is first, the subject and the auxiliary in the main clause are inverted. Example 1. They will speak to the press on condition that they remain anonymous sources. Example 2. She agreed on condition that she would not have to speak a line. Example 3. I'll come to the party on condition that you don't wear those ridiculous trousers. Example 4. The bank lent the company rupees 1 lakh on condition that they repaid the money within 6 months. Some examples of only if. Example 5. We will invest the money, but only if you can prove that it is a safe investment. Example 6. Lavanya will eat the fruit only if it is an apple. Only if you like classical music. It is worth coming tonight. Let us learn now should you with inversion, its definition, and some examples. It is used in formal situations. We can use should plus, subject plus, verb plus instead of if. Some example. Example 1. Should you wish to cancel your order, please contact our customer service department. Means, or if you should wish to cancel your order. Example 2. Should your child become anxious or nervous about any activity, it is a good idea to inform the team leader if your child should become. Example 3. Should you have any questions, I will be happy to help. Example 4. Marker pens are in the cupboard. Should you ever need one? Means marker pens are in the cupboard if you ever need one. Example 5. Should a customer wish to cancel their booking, they should notify us within 7 days. Example 5. Should a customer wish to cancel their booking, they should notify us within 7 days. Let us learn whether or not, its definition with some examples. We use whether or not when there are two alternatives and we want to say that something will happen or will be true in any of those two alternatives. Example 1. I'll help him whether or not he needs me. Means I will help him if he needs me and I will help him if he doesn't need me to. Example 2. Whether or not it rains, I'm going to the park. Means if it rains, I'm going to the park. If it doesn't rain, I'm going to park too. Example 3. Let me know whether or not you're going. Means let me know whether you're going or not. Let us now learn even if with its definition and some examples. We also use even if with a similar meaning to whether or not. It is used to emphasize that something will still be true or will be. Even if emphasizes that something will happen, or would have happened, whatever the condition. Let us see some examples. Example 1. Even if you apologize, he will never forgive you. Means whether or not you apologize, he will never forgive you. Example 2. Even if we leave right now, we still won't catch the train. Example 3. I wouldn't go into the water even if I could swim. Let us learn now in case, its definition with some examples. In case of implies a preventative action, a warning. We use in case of to talk about things that we do to be prepared for something that might happen or might be needed in the future. Example 1. I'll take my umbrella in case it rains because it might rain. Example 2. In case there is a fire emergency, employees should use the stairs to exit the building. Example 3. In case of the snow, make sure that you have warm clothes. Means take warm clothes because you might get snow. Example 4. In case of accidents, all cyclists have to wear helmet. Since accidents are possible, all cyclists. Spotlight. Do not confuse in case of and in cases of or in the case of. While in case of should not be used to express a situation or condition that is already true, the plural form in cases of or the expression in the case of do exactly that. These two expressions are not common and are only used in specific contexts. For example, in cases of severe infection, patients need to be isolated when they are severely infected. Let us learn now in the event of with its definition and with some examples. In the event of expresses a situation where action and condition are both true. The action only occurs when the subordinated condition is true. Thus, a sentence using in the event of can often be rephrased using a simple conditional if clause. Example 1. In the event of fire, leave the building by the nearest exit. In the event of emergency, call the ambulance. Means call the ambulance if there is an emergency. Example 3. In the event of victory, the team will go through the next round. Means if the team wins, it will go through the next round. Let us learn now one more expressions, or and otherwise. We often use or and otherwise with conditional meanings. Example 1. You have to start studying or you will fail all those exams. Means if you don't start studying, you will fail the exams. Example 2. We better send it by express mail, otherwise it will take many days. Means if we don't send it by express mail, it will take a lot of days. Conditional 1. If and adjectives. In the conditional 1, if also used with some adjectives. In formal style, subject plus, be plus is sometimes left out after if. Some examples. If in doubt, if possible, if necessary, etc. We can make the if clause shorter by omitting the subject and the verb be. Example 1. If in doubt, consult a dictionary. Means if you are in doubt, you can refer a dictionary or you can consult a dictionary. Example 2. If in doubt, ask for help. Means if you are in doubt, ask for help. It is also used in certain idiomatic expressions. The subject and be are normally omitted. Some examples. Example 1. If necessary, you can call Ramya at home. Example 2. I'd like a seat by the window if possible. Example 3. If interested, please let me know. Means if you are interested, please let me know. And finally, the type 1 conditional also used to express by using if so and if not. If so and if not can stand for an if clause which is understood from the context. Example 1. According to the weather forecast, it might rain tomorrow. If so, we will go hiking another day. Example 2. I hope Praveen gets here soon. If not, we will have to start without him. Let us learn now the type 2 conditional, its sentence constructions and its uses, or we also call it the functions of it. In a type 2 conditional sentence, the tense in the if clause is the simple past, and the tense in the main clause is the present conditional or the present continuous conditional, or we also call it conditional past. Let us learn the sentence structure of type 2 condition. If clause, we also call it subordinate clause, and the main clause. If plus simple past plus present conditional or present continuous conditional or conditional past. Let us learn the function of it. The type 2 conditional refers to an unlikely or hypothetical condition and its probable result. These sentences are not based on the actual situation. In Type 2 conditional sentences, the time is now or any time and the situation is hypothetical. It also expresses an improbable or imaginary conditional sentence. Question 1. If I don't have money, so I cannot. Question 1. I don't have money, so I can't give you any. The if clause is, if I had money, I could give you any. Question 2. I don't have a car, so I can't give you a ride. The if clause is, if I had a car, I could give you a ride. Some more examples. Example 3. If the weather wasn't so bad, we would go to the park. Example 4. If I was the Prime Minister of India, I would give everything to everyone for free. We are going to learn some other different formulas in Type 2. It is correct and very common to say if I were instead of if I was because it is in subjunctive mode. Here is a formula and sentence structure. If I were, and we use in the main clause conditional past. Some examples. Example 1. If I were rich, I would buy this dress. Example 2. If I were 20, I would travel around the world. Example 3. If I were a plant, I would love the rain. The conditional clause refers to a situation that's not true at the present. And the result clause means the main clause refers to the outcome of the condition clause in the near future. The conditional clause uses a subjunctive verb, were, or the past form of an action verb, and the result clause uses the verb phrase would plus V1, means the first form of the verb. And note, the order of the clauses can be reversed too. The result clause can come in the beginning either. Let us learn some more examples. Example 1. If I were the PM of India, I would give every student a laptop for free. Example 2. If John were alive, he would love to see us on the big screen. Example 3. We would travel the world if we had a lot of money. Example 4. If I had her number, I would give it to you. Example 5. If you studied well, you would pass the test. Example 6. If my parents weren't at home, I would definitely come to the party. Example 7. If I were you, I wouldn't take the offer. In Type 2 conditional sentences, we can also use modals like would, could, may, might in the main clause instead of would to express the degree of certainty, permission, or a recommendation about the outcome. Let us see the structure with some examples. The structure is if clause, or we also call it subordinate conjunction. If clause, or we also call it the subordinate clause. If plus simple past in the main clause with some modals. Example 1. We might buy a larger house if we had more money. Example 2. He could go to the concert if you gave him a ticket. Example 3. If he called me, I couldn't hear. Example 4. She could join us if she came back. Example 5. If you taught her, she might pass the exam. Example 6. He may help us if he had money. Some more additional usages of Type 2 conditional sentence. It is used to give advice. One of the most common usages of Type 2 conditional sentence is to give someone advice. Imagine yourself in their situation. Example 1. If I were you, I wouldn't hide this from my father. Example 2. If we were you, we wouldn't take the offer. Example 3. If I were you, I would not leave this job and go for higher education. Example 4. If you were clever, you would understand what I meant. Type 2 conditional is also used to give the reason for a situation. Here, we justify a present situation by laying down a condition and its results. Let's say you asked me to come to your place and I said I can't make it. Now I can give reasons why I couldn't come. We do this by taking about a hypothetical condition or situation in which is impossible. Let us see some examples with some situations and justifications. Situation: I can't come to your place. If my parents weren't outside, I would come to your place. The sentence lays down the reason why I can't come. Also, it shows the scenario in which it's possible. Situation 2. I won't work in your company. The answer is, I would work in your company if someone weren't working there. Situation 3. I will lend you some money. The answer is, if I didn't have enough money, I wouldn't lend you some. Type 2 conditional sentence also used to make a polite request or check if someone is okay with you or someone doing something, means a permission. It is common to use the type 2 conditional sentence to politely make request or check if someone is okay with something or action. Some examples. Example 1. Would you mind if I used your laptop for a day? Taking permission. Example 2. Would you be bothered if I asked you to move a little? Request. Example 3. Would it be a problem if I asked you to take a picture of us? Request. Example 4. Would you have a problem if we changed our seats? Example 5. Would you mind if we offered your parents to have tea with us? Taking permission. It is also used to dream about a situation that is impossible or unlikely in the present or the near future. Using type 2 conditional sentence is a way to think about something that is not real or possible for you. Let us see some examples of it. If I had a lot of money, I would buy a lot of cars. Example 2. If I studied in an English medium school, I would be fluent in English. Let us learn some negative sentences. In a negative type 2 conditional sentence, both or either one of the two clauses has to be negative. Some possible structures: negative conditional clause plus positive result clause, positive conditional clause plus negative result clause, negative conditional clause plus negative result clause. Note that the order of the clauses can be reversed. Let us see some examples. Example 1. If I weren't your brother, they would take me in their team. Example 2. You wouldn't get the entry if they saw you with a dog. Example 3. If the company offered me anything less than $1 million, I would take it. Example 4. He would not sell his car if he hadn't need money. Example 5. If you weren't his partner, you wouldn't be dragged into this case. Example 6. If I woke up late, I wouldn't be aware of what happened. Example 7. If my mother did not remind me, I would forget my worksheet at home. Example 8. If she were angry, she would not talk to us. Interrogative sentences. Interrogative sentences here in type 2 conditional sentences are used when you want to make a request or want to know how someone would do in a certain hypothetical situation. Let us see some examples. Example 1. Would it be okay with you if I parked my car in front of your car? Example 2. Would you mind if I closed the window? Example 3. Would she be bothered if I called her? Example 4. How would you react if she told your father your secrets? Example 5. Would you take me in your team if I passed the test? Example 6. What would happen if humans disappeared? Example 7. What would we do firstly if a fire broke out? Example 8. Would you cry if he left you? Example 9. What would happen if you did not drink water? Example 10. What would you do if you learned that you had a bad illness? Tenses and structures can be used in if clause, type 2 are given below. In if clause, past form of to be, past continuous tense, should, could, and had to are also used. Here are some examples. Example 1. If she were cooking, I would help her. Example 2. If the sun were shining, I would go to the beach. Example 3. If Sam were sitting here, we would be able to ask him the question ourselves. 4. We would be able to go to sailing if the wind were blowing. Example 5. If it wasn't raining, we would have lunch outside. Example 6. If we were staying at the hostel, we wouldn't have such a nice view of the river. Many words and expressions can be used with a similar meaning to if. Supposing. We use supposing when we want someone to imagine something is true or to imagine a particular thing will happen. We can use this word in both the first conditional and the second conditional constructions. Supposing may be used with a conditional meaning. It can be used in the first, second, or third conditional sentences. The speaker invites the listener to imagine a situation. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. Supposing. Suppose you lost your passport. You would have to go to the embassy, wouldn't you? Example 2. Supposing. Suppose I forgot the number. I would ask my mother to remind me. Example 3. Supposing I got a job. I wouldn't be able to travel with you next summer. Example 4. Suppose. Supposing you won the lottery. What would you do? Example 5. Supposing. Suppose that I won a lottery. I would buy a BMW car. Example 6. Suppose he needed my help. I would not refuse. Provided that. We can also use the word provided to express a conditional idea. It means on the conditional that. Another way to say this, if something happens, just like supposing. It's also possible to put the word that after it, but it isn't necessary. Some examples. Example 1. I would be very worried, provided that were the case. Example 2. Providing that you went to the party, I would go too. On condition that. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. Do you want me to pay in advance? I would pay in advance on condition that I got a discount. Example 2. He agreed to work on Saturdays on condition that he was paid overtime. Example 3. I would recommend it to all ages on condition that they have watched the other 2 films of this series. Let us learn something about were we to announce. We can also find cases of inversion with the structure were plus subject plus to plus infinitive. It is used to talk about the future improbable events. Some examples. Were we to announce the truth, we would receive a lot of criticism. Example 2. Were they to buy a new house, they would need to sell the old one first. Let us learn some negative forms by using should I not, had we not, were we not. When should, had, or were are negative, contrasted forms are not possible, and not is used after the subject. Some examples. Example 1. Should you not wish to retake the test? You must let us know before the end of June. Example 2. Had you not refused my invitation, we would have had the most incredible time in our lives. Example 3. Were you not my brother? I would call the police. Let us learn now the Type 3 conditionals and its sentence construction and its uses. Type 3 conditional. The third conditional is used to imagine a different past. We imagine a change in a past situation and a different result of that change. Let us learn the form and some functions of it. In a Type 3 conditional sentence, the tense in the if clause is in the past perfect form, and the tense in the main clause is the perfect conditional or the perfect continuous conditional. Here is the table of it. Function. The Type 3 conditional refers to an impossible condition in the past and its probable result in the past. These sentences are truly hypothetical and unreal because it is now too late for the condition or its result to exist. There is always some implication of regret with Type 3 conditional sentences. The reality is the opposite of or contrary to what the sentence expresses. In Type 3 conditional sentences, the time is the past and the situation is hypothetical. Let us see some examples. Example 1. If I had worked harder, I would have passed the exam. Example 2. If I had known you were coming, I would have baked a cake. Example 3. I would have been happy if you had called me on my birthday. In Type 3 conditional sentences, you can also use modals in the main clause instead of would to express the degree of certainty, permission, and recommendation about the outcome. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. If I had worked harder, I might have passed the exam. Example 2. You could have been on time if you had caught the bus. Example 3. If he had called you, you could have gone. Example 4. If you bought my school supplies for me, I might be able to go to the park. Both would and had can be contracted to apostrophe D, which can be confusing if you are not confident with Type 3 conditional sentences. Just remember two rules. The first one, would never appears in the if clause, so if apostrophe D appears in the if clause, it must be abbreviating had. Rule number 2, had never appears before have. So if apostrophe D appears on the pronoun just before have, it must be abbreviating would. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. If I had known you were in hospital, I would have visited you. Example 2. I would have brought a present if I had known it was your birthday. Example 3. If you had given me your email, I would have written to you. Had you. Had with inversion. In formal situations, we can use had plus subject plus verb instead of in the third conditional sentences. Example 1. Had I known you were waiting outside, I would have invited you to come in. Example 2. Had Monica realized if she would be traveling alone, she would never have agreed to go. Supposing in third conditional. Supposing may be used with a conditional meaning. It can be used in first, second, or third conditional sentences. The speaker invites the listener to imagine a situation. Let us learn some examples. Example 1. He hadn't recognized us, he might never have spoken to us. When we refer to something that did not happen, we used past perfect tense. Some examples. Example 2. Supposing they had closed the road, would that have been a good idea? Suppose I had accidentally told Maria about the party. That would have ruined the surprise. Let us learn now the mixed type conditionals and its sentence construction and some uses of it. Mixed conditionals. We use mixed conditional if we want to talk about the present and the past in the same sentence. The mixed type conditional is a conditional of the second and the third conditional. The mixed type conditional refers to an unreal past condition and its probable result in the present. These sentences express a situation which is contrary to reality both in the past and in the present. In these mixed conditional sentences, the time is the past in the if clause and the present in the main clause. Note: we can use past simple or continuous in the if clause to refer the present or future, and would, should, might have plus past participle in the main clause to refer the past. We can also use past perfect in the if clause to refer the past, and would, should, might plus infinitive to refer the present. Some examples. Example 1. If I did not have so much work, I would have gone to the party last night. Example 2. If I spoke German, I would have understood them. Example 3. If I have won the lottery, I would be rich. Example 4. If I hadn't dropped the school, I could have a better job now. We are going to learn some examples by using different times. Let us see some examples by using the past and the present. Example 1. If I had won the lottery, I would be rich. Example 2. If I had taken French in high school, I would have more job opportunities. Example 3. If she had been born in the United States, she wouldn't need a visa to work here. Some examples by using the past and the future. Example 1. If she had signed up for the Sky trip last week, she would be joining us tomorrow. Example 2. If Mark has gotten the job instead of Joy, he would be moving to America. Example 3. If Daniel hadn't wasted his Christmas bonus, he would go to Mexico with us next month. Some examples by using present and the past. Example 1. If I were rich, I would have bought that Ferrari we saw yesterday. Example 2. If Sam spoke Russian, he would have translated the letter for you. Example 3. If I did not have to work so much, I would have gone to the party last night. Some examples by using present and future. Example 1. If I did not have so much vacation time, I wouldn't go with you on the cruise to Alaska next week. Example 2. If Srinivas were more creative, the company would send him to New York to work on the advertising campaign. If Ganesh weren't so nice, he wouldn't be tutoring you in maths tonight. Some examples by using future and past. Example 1. If I weren't going on my business trip next week, I would have accepted that new assignment at work. Example 2. If my parents weren't coming this weekend, I would have planned a nice trip to Araku Valley. Example 3. If she weren't making us a big dinner tonight, I would have suggested that we go to that nice restaurant. Let us learn some examples of future and present. Example 1. If I were going to that concert tonight, I would be very excited. Example 2. If Sandy were giving a speech tomorrow, she would be very nervous. Example 3. If Santosh didn't come with us to the dessert, everyone would be disappointed.